Good morning, Ed Tate, and welcome everyone to the Joyly Studios, where again today we're having a fascinating topic. And today we have the great honor of having Ed Tate with us. And Ed, how has your morning been going? I heard you're really, really busy talking to clients. What is the conversation these days?
Well, I've had like multiple conversations. I had like one client is in London, and he is how can he pivot his sales business right now? Especially London, the whole world is locked down right now. So, how can he keep the momentum going on this sales presentation? So I have another client who is in a very unique business. She's a former dentist, and they are helping people with sleep apnea issues.
Okay.
So usually like dentists right now, they're not making money right now because they have to have patients in seats. However, they're adopting a model where sleep apnea patients can be mailed these appliances. These appliances can be fitted in their mouths, pretty much like they're doing with, what's the name of the company that's doing this with the braces? Invisalign. Mm-hmm. So they're adopting this Invisalign model where they're able to help their sleep apnea patients. My particular client, she's out of Tennessee, and they just recently had tornadoes. So she was fortunate in that the tornadoes didn't hit her home. She's got power, her family's safe, etc. However, on top of this COVID situation, she's dealing with those types of circumstances. So that's been my morning.
Wow. All right. Well, let's get into it because I have some very juicy questions established for you. So before we do all of that, maybe you could just give me an overview. So the best thing I like about edtate.com is everything about what you do is very clear. It's very concise. You're easy to follow, easy to understand. So maybe you could just give a little, couple minutes history of where you've been and where you are at the moment with your speaking career.
Sure. All right. So I just celebrated my 20th year in the speaking business on February the 1st. And a little background for those of you who don't know who I am, probably my biggest claim to fame is that I won something called the World Championship of Public Speaking. Think of it as the American Idol of public speaking. It is a 9-month competition, 6 different rounds, 35,000 contestants. In the year 2000, I won the entire competition. And that was a life-altering event. Now, for those of you who are curious, by the way, like on the top and the back right there, behind the Toastmasters, that's you see the like a diamond. That's what you get. That's your prize. Nice. There is no prize money. There's no trip to Hawaii. You get that big lucite trophy in the back right there. But that big lucite trophy has taken me around the world. I've spoken in 25 different countries, 5 different continents. Tens of thousands of people. I love my life. I met my wife in South Africa. We have a beautiful child. It is, again, it's given me the life that I absolutely love and adore. Now, that's the impact it's had on my life. What do I do for my customers and my clients? So I help sales organizations win high stakes presentations. So what does that mean? For example, I had an executive in a high tech firm. He was speaking to 25 investors. In this particular helping him make this presentation, he was able to sell about $20 million worth of business. In fact, he actually found an investor for his company and has taken his company to be like $100 million business. So again, that was a high stakes presentation. Mm-hmm. Early this year, I was contacted from a lady from Saudi Arabia. As you're aware, Saudi Arabia is the last country on planet Earth that has allowed women to drive a vehicle. Okay. Prior to that, women from Saudi Arabia could not leave their home without a male escort. They could not travel without a male escort. Well, the Crown Prince has changed that. He's allowed women to drive, but he's also got this initiative that's from over the next decade. And over the next decade, they want at least 100,000 women to be in leadership roles, be it in the government, in corporations, their suppliers, etc. And this particular client, her name is Hind. That's her job. Her job is to make this happen over the next decade in Saudi Arabia. So she was speaking in front of 100 of the largest companies, government agencies, 99.9% men, as to why they should make this happen. Now, keep in mind, culturally, this goes against the norm. Men are always in charge, etc. So here's a woman who has to make a presentation in front of 99.9% men who historically, this is how things have been done.
Wow. That's
Standing ovation, and I think like 50% of the companies are adopting her recommendations. Again, that's another high stakes presentation. So I help people win high stakes presentations.
I totally get that. I want you in my back pocket every time I get up on stage. So
Oh, absolutely.
I watched that event or that speaker or that speech that you gave, and it was brilliant. Like funny, like everyone was engaged. You had people repeating after you. I mean, you could see there were so many elements of what it is that you do that you can teach. So anyway, based on that speech, you gave one quote in there a few times. You kept saying, "It's just one of those days," and what are you going to do, basically? So I sort of like am looking at the COVID-19 as one of those days. So what do you think that people are going to take away? Like, can you fast forward 6 months, a year, 2 years from now? What's going to be the essence of what we're going to remember from now?
Number one, who they were in quarantine with. And 6 months from now, are they still going to be with those people? I'm going to do like a little backstory. So like, this is my third major catastrophic event, if you will. So, I was actually in New York on 9/11. And my business actually thrived after the world economic crisis of 2007, 2008. And so here's a couple lessons for you. Lesson number one is it's not what happens to you, is, how you move forward. And we're looking at progress. We're not looking at perfection, if you will. 9/11, we got through that. 2007, 2008, we got through that. And we're also going to get through this as well. The thing I'm inviting you to do is, since we're in quarantine, not take out your frustrations on your anxieties against your loved ones. And that's easy to do. It's easy to become like a little snappy, if you will. And the reason, by the way, I'm talking to myself when I'm saying this, because I've been, just a little irritable. I like to work out 4 or 5 times a week. I love going outdoors. I live in Nevada. It is sunny 300 days out of the year. And however, I am, paying attention to the requirements, and that is, staying at home. So every now and then I get like a little snappy, but, again, what we need to do is to not be snappy with the loved ones. Right now, you're actually creating memories. So the thing I'm inviting you to do is like capture some of those memories. I like to journal. So I like to, capture things. So, I have like this little tablet here, and I write down things, and I want to capture some of those memorable moments, because you're going to look back on these and say, hey, remember that time when we were in quarantine? So, capture those moments, take pictures, do some creative things. For example, I'm on a dragon boat team. Dragon boat, like think of it as paddling, if you will. Obviously, our team, we cannot participate in any events. We can't even practice right now. Well, but what we're doing is we're staying connected. Physical distancing does not mean social isolation. So just 2 days ago, we had a scavenger hunt. So we all got together on Zoom. We had people from across the country, on Zoom, and they had this list of things that, from the scavenger hunt. Let's see, I'm trying to look for my phone here. Give me a second here. And, for example, I had to find a puzzle. You had to find a VHS tape. Who has a VHS tape? You had to have $100 bill. Just so happens I had $100 bill, and it was fun.
This is fun.
It was
awesome.
hilarious. It was
That's
absolutely
great.
hilarious. So,
Oh, beautiful. All right. Well,
now's a chance to make memories.
Beautiful. I love that. So today's topic, again, is part of the 8 dimensions of wellness. And I just want to read the occupational wellness definition, which is the ability to achieve a balance between work and leisure in a way that promotes health, a sense of personal satisfaction, and, especially to create something that's financially rewarding. So my second question to you today is leisure and balance. And I love what you just said. Those 2 examples are giving you a lot of leisure amongst the work that you're doing every day, all day long. So what would be your advice for people that are trying to figure that out right now? And it doesn't even feel like a deep breath is even in the parameter, let alone leisure. So maybe you could just reflect on that a little bit.
One of my one of my best friends was a guy by the name of Roger Malott. And Roger Malott was a stress therapist. And unfortunately, he's passed away several years ago. But my favorite idea or concept he had was, he calls it the pie theory. And what I'd like you to do right now is I'd like you to think about, what is your favorite pie? So for example, for me, my favorite pie is pecan pie. I need a moment here. Okay. Now, even if you don't like pie, it's a metaphor, just play along. Okay. So think of what is your favorite pie. And Roger says the amount of energy that we have in a specific day is equal to our favorite pie. And what we must do every single day, regardless of the circumstances, regardless of COVID or any other circumstances that come your way, is this: you must save the first slice of pie for you, the first slice of this energy pie. And what I mean by that is, and by the way, you're not being selfish. It's because if you don't get what you need in terms of energy, then the people who need you, the people who depend on you, are not going to get what they need. Does that make sense? Always save that first slice of pie for you. Now, there are people who I call energy robbers. Do you know what an energy robber is? A pie robber? That is the moment at work you see them, they say hello to you, poof, your pie is gone. Do you know people like that? If you are in quarantine with them, just look straight ahead, pretend like we're not talking to them, just wink 2 times and just let me know that'll be the signal. But they're energy robbers. You must save that first slice of pie for you, that first slice of energy pie. So here's what I want you to do. Next time you encounter a energy robber or a pie robber, I want you to say to that person, and you can say it internally. This is your inside voice. This is not your outside voice. You can say, no pie for you. Save some pie. Save some energy for yourself. Always save some pie energy. That first slice always, always, always goes to yourself. Take care of yourself. So self-care and practice extreme self-care. So in my particular case, I like to meditate. I'll meditate first thing in the morning. It's my quiet time. I like to journal. I write down my thoughts, my ideas. And good ideas come in that journaling time. Like for me, I've gone from I have a non-essential service. I'm a professional speaker to I have an absolutely essential service for my clients. My clients are CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. You know what? It is absolutely critical that you as a CEO be able to get your message out to your people. Your people, for the first time, they're dispersed. They're not in the building anymore. They're probably working for the first time in their homes with their families. They feel disconnected because they're no longer with their colleagues. So now it is up to you as the leader to, in this format, be able to communicate and communicate relentlessly.
I love that. And that really leads me to my second question. So this whole online everything that everyone is really shifted to, and, it's become a new way of life, even for dinner parties and, kids' birthday parties and, from Fortune 5, it's across the board. So you feel like sometimes I feel like I'm getting really caught up into what do I take a picture of, or what do I say, or what do I post? And I took another quote from your speech was that every hour people spend 24 minutes, and probably that number is higher per hour, focused on engaging, negotiating, selling what they're doing, influencing others. So that's a lot of time and a lot of energy. And I bet there's a lot of exhaustion around that. So do you have any shortcuts or tips that maybe you could share with us about that?
Yes. So with regard, again, every day we're trying to influence someone to do anything. You're trying to influence your children to go to bed or to do their homework. You're trying to get your spouse to do this. And at work, you're trying to get someone to do this. So there's a book called Influence Without Authority. One of the authors is called Cohen, and they have like a multi-step process. Number one, the first thing that you should do is view the world from their perspective, not from your perspective. View the world from their perspective. Let me give you an example of that. A couple of years ago, I was on a trip of a lifetime, and I was flying to India. And I am a frequent flyer with, I'm not going to say who I'm a frequent flyer with, but anyway, on this particular airline, I'm a frequent flyer. And usually I get upgraded to first class. On this trip, for whatever reason, I was not upgraded to first class. And however, when I got on the plane, I noticed that first class was empty. And I'm thinking like, what happened here? But anyway, I'm not going to worry about that. So anyway, I get on the plane starts to take off, and immediately we lose power. We lose all power on the plane. I can't do any work on my laptop. I can't read any books. I can't watch any movies. 18 hours of misery. So I'm returning back to the United States. I have a conversation with the customer service people. It says, hey, what happened is, hey, I've got a proposal due. I'm going to be working on this proposal, headed home. I just want to make sure that doesn't happen again. This is not a problem. So I get on the plane, I test everything works. And apparently this plane needed every amp of electricity to take off because it happened again. Well, I've got 3 hours on my laptop, so I'm working on this proposal. And all of a sudden it occurs to me, I'm not going to finish this before this gets done. And I noticed in this case, business class is empty. So one of the rules of flights and flight school or flying is that whatever class of service that you're in, typically you can't change that class of service. And you definitely just can't change your seats randomly because you will be arrested. So anyway, I went to the purser. The purser is a lead flight attendant. I explained my circumstances. And she said, well, you got to stay you have to stay in your section. Why don't you see if there's an empty seat in your section? Well, they had announced that section was filled to capacity, plus it was 3 o'clock in the morning. So this woman wanted me at 3 o'clock in the morning to figure out if I could find a plug in between people sleeping. I didn't think that was going to be a good idea. However, I did notice that during dinner, there were 2 friendly flight attendants. And in this particular case, I said to myself, hey, these might be people who I can approach. So in this case, one of the steps is to identify possible allies. Allies, you want to identify friends, not foes. So in this case, I identified 2 friends and 2 foes. I also wanted to look at it from their perspective. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Number one, they want to, flight attendants, they want to be respected. Okay, they also want to follow the rules. So let's say, for example, Ed was persuasive, that I was persuasive enough to convince a flight attendant to let me into business class. Okay, do you think there were other frequent flyers on that plane? Of course there were. Do you think they would notice that Ed got into business class and they didn't? Of course they would. That would cause complete and absolute chaos. So I have to look at it from their perspective in terms of, okay, let's not do that. What do I really want? I thought initially I wanted to be in business class. That is not my goal. My goal is electricity for my laptop so I can complete my proposal. So that's another rule. What is your real goal? And sometimes your real goal is not the goal that you you assume. I assumed that my goal was to get business class. That's not my goal. My goal is to get electricity. So this is how I solved the problem using some of these ideas. I approached my ally, a lady by the name of Molly, and I said, Molly, I need a favor from you. I realize that you cannot upgrade me to business class. Okay. I explained to her what had happened to me in a previous flight, and I explained to her what's going on right now. And I said, I've got a proposal that's due by the time this plane lands. I know you can't upgrade me, but can you upgrade my laptop? Well, anyway, she laughed. She thought it was hilarious. And she said, of course I can. So she took my laptop. She actually plugged it in. And I got to tell you, I was really, really jealous. So there I was, standing there. I could see my laptop. It actually had a drink with an umbrella in it. And anyway, long story short, I was really jealous. But they powered up my laptop. I also did something else. I went back to the purser and I genuinely, authentically thanked her for what Molly did for me. I didn't do it sarcastically. I didn't say it in such a way that, hey, I told you so, because otherwise don't do that.
Yes.
Okay? And then I got the deal done. And I also did something else. I had something called, they give you these coupons if you're a frequent flyer. Well, anyway, I filled out one of those coupons and gave it to I gave it to Molly, and that actually goes into Molly's file, and that determines if she gets promotions down the road. So I paid her back 2 ways. I thanked her boss. I gave her one of these coupons, and I actually posted it online. What a good job they did.
Yes. That's amazing. So everything I hear and everything I watched and read from you online is that I can just sense this underlying thread of compassion for everyone that you meet in your journey every day, all day long. And then obviously the second part of that is your generosity. Like you're just always looking to see how you can give. Even doing this broadcast today, Joyly, is just something that we're getting started. I appreciate you taking an hour. So maybe you could just talk to people a little bit about that give versus me, and how that shows up as a joyful process in your life and how that could affect others as well.
I have a career that I would have never imagined because, and my philosophy is just to be nice. Don't be a jerk, to be nice. For example, if you go to my website and you see my championship speech, it's called One of Those Days. Basically, I saw a guy being a jerk to an airline employee, and I confronted him on it. Now, I confronted him, not because I'm this brave soul. I confronted him because he was so nasty to that lady. I think, sometimes it's you. Sometimes there's somebody who ought to do that. It's you. And on that day, it was me. And I confronted the guy because what he did was just so wrong. I didn't do it for any reason. I didn't do it because I didn't think anyone was watching. I just did it. Anyway, here's what happened. When I confronted him, I go to the gate and they said, hey, there's a manager there from United Airlines. And I'm thinking like, man, a suit behind the counter is never good. What's going on? Is the flight delayed? What's going on here? And the guy says, I just want to thank you for what you've done. I said, well, what did I do? And he says, like, one of our managers observed how not gracious you treated one of our own. And that same manager took her lunch break when you confronted that guy. We just want to thank you for standing up for us. And he gives me an upgrade to first class. And by the way, on the next 5 flights, I got complimentary upgrades to first class. Now, on the 6th flight, I kept saying, hey, are you sure I'm in coach? It's me, it's Ed. Just check your system there. But that was my championship story. That one moment in time when I was nice and I was compassionate and I stood up for someone, again, with no expectation of something happening in return, I have now had a successful career. I've been around the world, 25 different countries, etc. And that one moment in time back in 1998 is still paying dividends to this day. There is a benefit to being nice.
Yeah.
Be nice. Being nice is the new selling, And here's something else I will do is, like, for example, if I'm in an airport and I see a person being a jerk to the customer service people behind the counter, I will race to be the next person behind them. Because, like, I want to treat that person so graciously and so nice. Guess what? About 20% of the time, they'll upgrade me. Now, yes. Do I do that with I don't. I do it to make that person's day better. And if they give me an upgrade, fine. It's not an expectation.
I love that.
So, it's just made my life better.
Absolutely. Thank you for that story. Again, if you haven't heard the speech by Ed, you need to go find it. And I'll put the link down below so you can just click on it and take a quick, 15 minutes or something. It's spectacular. So before we move on to the next big question, which is about chaos again. So I know you have a little girl, so there's a lot of joy in your life right now. So yeah. You're
a lot of lack of sleep too.
A lot of lack of sleep. Is she 1? Did you say 1?
She just turned 1. Yes.
Yeah. Tell me a really quick story about her new learning. Maybe yesterday. What did you notice?
Oh man, she is okay. So she's okay. So this is embarrassing. So I need to be transparent here. So I have a 1-year-old, and my son just turned 34 on the 14th. So I have a 34-year-old and I have a 1-year-old. A different program will explain. First of all, my second wife, she had surgery where they botched her reproductive system, and she wasn't supposed to be able to have children. And for 5 years, we had no reason to doubt that. And then, like, last year, she got pregnant, and it's an absolute miracle. And I'm all in. She is the exact opposite of my son. My son, he was chill. He was cool. She's trying to talk. She can't talk yet, but she has her own language, and you have to pull her back as opposed to pushing her out. And it feels like she says, "Look, I've got things to do. I got places to go." That is her attitude.
I love it.
She is always talking to us. She can't wait to, she can't wait. I mean, she's like, I'm going to walk. I'm going to get this walking thing down, And I just absolutely love her energy. And she just brings me joy. She just brings a big smile to my face every single day. And oh my God, it's just, I'm loving it.
I'm so happy for you. I saw the 1-year-old picture of her birthday party. That looked like so much fun.
In isolation, physical distancing.
That's okay. You speak in your work about the 4-step process and how to deal with change. And I just think that in these uncertain times, in this whole occupational wellness topic that we're talking about, maybe you could just summarize those 4 steps for us. That would be amazing.
Absolutely. So I'm the former training director of a company called the Denver Rocky Mountain News. It's one of the 2 daily newspapers in Denver. And back in the year 2000, they announced something called a JOA, which is a joint operating agreement. This is newspaper lingo for a merger. These 2 organizations have been trying to put each other out of business for well over 100 years. I was part of the transition team, so I got a chance to be in both buildings. And both buildings thought this was the worst thing ever. Truth of the matter is, people aren't reading newspapers any day, and that was the reason for this particular merger. So we taught them a program on dealing with and adjusting to change, and this is based on the work of a guy by the name of William Bridges. He's written a series of books on transitions, and I think this is called Managing Transitions. Managing Transitions is for corporations. The book Transitions is for individuals, if you will. But there's a 4-step process in the book, and it's called the SCAN plan. The hard part about change is not change. The hard part about change is uncertainty. That's the hard part about change. For example, analytically, we understand things. For example, we understand that the Denver Rocky Mountain News and the Denver Post are going to merge, and they're going to form this new company called the Denver Newspaper Agency. Everyone intellectually understands that. We get that. However, we struggle with the middle, and the middle is uncertainty. How will this change specifically impact us? That's the hard part about change. That's about change that people resist. So this is called the SCAN plan. And the SCAN plan, I'm just going to draw like a little diagram real quick using a marker. Okay, SCAN. Okay, so on a piece of paper, what I'd like you to do is write this, SCAN. The S stands for situation. Okay, so what's the situation, the change, the transition, the difficulty, the challenge that you're going through right now? Just write that down. Okay, by the way, this is for your eyes only. You're not going to share this with anyone. This is only for you. And you can use this tool anytime, any place, anywhere. You can take out a piece of paper or you can put it on your device, whatever it is, just put down, SCAN. S stands for situation. C stands for concerns. What are your concerns about this situation? A stands for attitude. How do you feel about this situation? And N stands for needs. What do you need to make it through this situation? So when the Rocky Mountain News and the Post merged, the situation was the merger. That's the S. Concerns. What are your concerns about this situation? Well, everyone was concerned that they're going to lose their job. Okay. Their attitude. How do they feel about this situation? Well, in many situations, we couldn't print down. We couldn't write down exactly what they said. It wasn't politically correct. By the way, your eyes only. This is only for you. I want you to genuinely write down how you feel about this. If the situation sucks, write down it sucks. If you have harsher language than that, then write that down. And here's the reason why. For your health. Anxiety and stress creates a chemical called cortisol. And cortisol is like the acid of your body. It wears you out from the inside out. It is in your best interest to get that or to reduce that. And the way to do that is to get these feelings and these emotions out. Will you get them completely out? Of course not. But this is one way you can do that. Another way you can get this out is through exercise, through meditation, or something healthy and directional and purposeful. But this is write down your emotions, write down how you genuinely feel, write down those anxieties, put those out, take those out of your body and put them onto paper. Okay, or put them onto your electronic device, whatever tool that you use. Okay, so that's the attitude piece. And this is the most important part of the process is get those emotions, how you feel outside of your body and onto paper. Okay, and then finally, identify what you need. What do you need from your friends and your family? What do you need from your company? And typically it's information, or it may be training. If you're in a leadership role, for your company, you need to communicate relentlessly. 10 different times, 10 different ways. I used to work for human resources. We had like this big poster. It was an FAQ and had the 10 top things to learn about the merger. I was literally standing next to the sign, and one person after another person would walk up to me and they would ask me questions that were clearly on the sign. During times of extreme change, absorption is slow. guess what? People aren't going to get the initial message. They definitely are not going to get an email. One of my clients say, you need to communicate via face mail rather than email during times of extreme change. People need to see your face. Now, you can't do it physically, but you can do it virtually. And you need to communicate them. And then with regard to your families, you need to communicate with your family. You need to communicate with your children, your significant others. And the message is, we're going to make it through this, and specifically how we're going to make it through this. And the other thing you want to do is emphasize is progress is not perfection.
Yeah.
This is a sloppy time we're in right now.
Mm-hmm.
And then, an expression I've been telling my clients is, I'm going to pivot. I'm not going to panic.
Right. Love that. Beautiful. Oh, I really like the part about the emotions. I think people are, just not getting outside like they need to right now. And I think that's really one of the key things, is just get outside and breathe.
Yes.
Breathe through this.
Well, here's another crazy exercise. Okay. This exercise is called a minute to vent. Okay. So what you do is, you get together with, a partner, a friend, etc. And you can do this virtually too. Okay. So you tell the friends, hey, I need a minute to vent. The purpose of your partner is to time you. And your job is to vent for a complete minute, complete 60 seconds. Here's what I've discovered. Most people, if they vent, they only do it for 20 seconds. No. You got 40 more seconds. Keep going. And you can be as crazy as you want to be. Make them go through the entire 60 seconds. Okay. Now, I've only had one person who's actually gone beyond a minute, and she actually went 4 minutes, and she was going through a divorce. So I get it. I understand. Okay. But here's what happens is, emotionally, you get those emotions out of your body.
Yeah.
You get those negative feelings outside of your body. So the exercise is called a minute to vent. And your job is now to flip the role and listen to that person who needs a minute to vent as well.
I love that. And then also, once you get that out, there's room for more joy, right? You're just opening up space to have gratitude for the little things. So
absolutely.
Yeah. So joy for me is having meaningful relationships, social relationships, and also really enjoying what you do during your work, as well as having the freedom during the day to have and make your own life decisions. So when people feel that essence inside of them, they're feeling joyful more of the time, most often, and carrying that into their families. So from your training and all your coaching and teaching, can you think of a story like during the day, or maybe it's just a continuous thread of stories that really gives you joy? Like, where is your real solid excitement and passion? What is the shift that you're creating? That kind of thing. What's the joy for you?
Wow, that's a great question. Things that I'm thankful for and things that give me joy. Obviously, my little girl, she gives me joy every single day. I am joyful to be in a healthy relationship with my wife. I absolutely love my wife, and we have a relationship where I feel like we're on each other's team. I was in a relationship prior to that. I mean, this is many years ago, and I'm not going to throw that person underneath the bus, but it was a situation that it drained me. I felt that sometimes we'd be watching like one of these crime shows, like Unsolved Mysteries, and sometimes I felt that she was studying. I mean, I know that's a big thing to say, but you can't be involved in a relationship with someone you feel that way. So the fact that I'm in a relationship, a true partnership with someone who I feel like is my best friend, who is on my team and who's got my back, that gives me joy, if you will. I have a career that I absolutely love. I love my life, and I love my career. Again, it's taken me around the world. I've had some amazing experiences. Again, I met my wife in South Africa. I was speaking there. I was on tour. She was on row 2, C2. Not that I was paying very close attention.
That was a moment to remember.
And the thing I like about my job is, like, for example, I will take time off. Like, for example, I call it my maker time, where I'm creative. My maker time is from 5 o'clock in the morning till like about 9:30 or 10. That's my most creative time. And then I will do other things. And then the afternoons, I will stop. My workday starts about 2 o'clock. I don't work that traditional 9 to 5 because I want I work from home. I want to be able to spend time with my wife. I want to be able to, like, once we're able to go out again, take her out to lunch, and take my child out for a stroll, like taking her to the park and those types of things. So those are some of the things that give me joy, as I have this lifestyle that has so much flexibility. I live on a golf course, and I don't say that to brag or impress upon you, but I don't play golf.
Yeah.
We live here because every day when we look out this window, it is absolutely gorgeous. We have mountains. We're on the lake. Where I live gives me joy every single morning. And I'm inviting you to somehow find that in your life.
I love that. I love that. And so we've been doing a lot of interviews just with nonprofits, leaders of Las Vegas Police Department Foundation. Today I have one. Just there are so many people that are influencing joy right now, and sort of just digging deep and running into the fire as a leader and just showing up joyfully. And I think that's the same with you too. So before we get into...
I got one other die I want to share.
Oh, yeah.
Where you focus grows.
You're right.
So where you focus grows. So the thing I'm inviting you to do, by the way, there's 3 laws of focus. Number 1, you can only clearly focus on one thing at a time. Okay. You can only clearly focus on one thing at a time. Number 2, there's no such thing as multitasking. There's no such thing as multitasking. And the words no and don't do not work. So what do I mean by that? Okay. No and don't do not work. Have you ever said to a child, don't spill the milk? Well, guess what? The word no or don't does not work because there's no picture for the word no or don't. So when you say to a child, don't spill the milk, what does a child see? They see spilt milk. So when you tell someone no or don't do anything, they see the behavior that you don't want. Guess what? They're going to repeat that behavior. So therefore, it is your fault. So here's what you need to do is paint the picture of the behavior that you do want. Rather than don't spill the milk, hey, honey, hold the cup with both hands. Focus, what you focus on grows, and you can only clearly focus on one thing at a time. You can focus on all the COVID-19 news that's available through all forms of social media, broadcasting, etc. If you focus on that, guess what? Where's your attitude? Where's your joy going to go? It's going to be a death spiral. And I'm not suggesting that you ignore that. I am saying that you limit that. After 15 minutes, it's all pretty much the same. So 15 minutes, and then focus on what do you want your life to be after this is over with? That's where I'm focusing on. I'm focusing on my future self. I'm focusing on like my life from 3 months from now, 6 months from now. I've got a 5-year plan. I've got a 10-year plan as to where I want to be a decade from now. I'm inviting you to focus on that. Okay.
I love that. And it really answers my question about how you would help others define joy. So I think that is really good. I wanted to go back a little bit with a story that you told on in the past that I was watching, and that was about your childhood growing up in the neighborhood with some of those amazing families. And I didn't quite get what if you were like friends all through school, all of you guys, or was that just a moment in time? Do you know what I'm asking?
Which story? Which story specifically?
Did you grow up in Muhammad Ali's neighborhood?
Oh, I did. Yes.
And so was that a moment, or was that sort of where all those friends, are they still friends, or maybe just
Unfortunately, we've kind of drifted away. So,
okay.
So I grew up in South Side Chicago. I grew up on a street called Jeffrey. I grew up specifically 69th and Jeffrey. And on 69th and Jeffrey, there were a series of apartment buildings. However, and behind the apartment buildings, was a community called Hyde Park. Okay, actually, it was called South Shore. In South Shore, we actually in that community we actually had Muhammad Ali had one of his homes. Jesse Jackson had his home. The football player Gail Sayles had his home, and there was a bunch of people, upper middle class people lived there. So I grew up with Jesse Jackson's kids. Playing basketball and sports with his kids. And a lot of the kids there, their parents were doctors, lawyers, again, upper middle class. And I grew up with those kids playing in that community. So I learned, I'm a black kid and I grew up playing hockey. I'm a pretty good hockey player. Okay. And that's the community I grew up with. And I grew up in a community where I saw that life could be better. It didn't just have to be, what my family had traditionally seen or had traditionally experienced. So that's the community, that's the neighborhood I grew up with. And just, growing up and watching these powerful men, to be honest with you, because I grew up my grandmother raised me. So I grew up in a household without a male, but to see Jesse Jackson, to see Muhammad Ali, to see Gail Sayers, and to see these doctors and these lawyers in this community, these strong, powerful figures, these people were my role models growing up. And I wanted to be like that.
Yep. And so, and here you are, you're that for so many people, and
well, specifically for my son, David, so I wanted to be a strong man and strong influence. And my best friend, other than my wife, is my son.
That's beautiful. I love the family part of this conversation, which leads me to my very last question. You mentioned there just briefly that grandma raised you, Grandma Nisi, I think you call her. And it sounds like she had a very special place in your heart. So maybe you could just leave us with a couple of comments about Grandma Nisi and what she brought to your life as far as joy is concerned.
Well, the second biggest change the first biggest change in my life was when my grandmother raised me. My mom, unfortunately, was in a situation. My mother suffered from mental illness, and she wasn't in a position to take care of me. And it was my grandmother who stepped up. So keep in mind, my grandmother, she had already raised 6 children. My dad being the oldest, and she already had her own life. She already had her own business, and the thought of raising a child again, probably was not high on her priority list, but she stepped up and she modeled behavior. I am the man I am today because of her. I have the values and the morals, I have today because of her, because she modeled those day in and day out. She supported me and she would call me on things, one time I was a smart aleck and, and she's under 5 feet tall. She's 4'11". Okay. I'm a hair shy of 6 feet tall. So she was almost a foot shorter than me. And, one day I was a smart aleck and she slapped me on the face and she called me on it. And she was 100% right in those circumstances. So she taught me lifelong lessons that, stick with me to this day. And I think one of the reasons that I'm nice to people, I'm joyful, and I'm respectful to people, it's all to do to my grandmother, Nisi.
And when did she pass?
She passed away 6 years ago.
6 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
What a beautiful story. I hope everybody has a Grandma Nisi in your life. And if not, reconnect with your moms and dads and friends and family that maybe you haven't heard from for a long, long time. I think this is the time. This is definitely the time to do that. Yeah. These are the moments. And I was on with my mom not too long ago, and she was so frustrated about Zoom. But I said, even though it took us an hour to figure out and we were not hungry when we were done, we were so angry. She figured it out, and next time it's going to be a lot easier.
And she's going to be an expert the next time,
Absolutely.
She's going to be changing her virtual backgrounds and,
Exactly. Well, thank you very much for your time, Ed. You've been a fabulous guest on the Joyly Studios today, and you have a fabulous day with that little girl.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on your show.
You're very welcome.